Hey guys, and welcome back to our statistics unit. So yesterday we talked about our measures of center, and I'm just going to review those for a little bit. So yesterday we talked about our mean, and another way to show that we're talking about our mean is going to be an X with a bar over top of it. So that's going to be X bar. And as we talked about yesterday, it was the average of our data, which is usually a good descriptor of data unless there is a piece of data that is very different from the rest of the data, or in other words, an outlier. Alright, our mode is the number or numbers that occurs the most often. And you can have more than one mode, or you can have no mode. And then we also talked about our median, which can also be called Q2, which we'll talk about. And it is the number that lies in the middle of a data set when the data is set in order from smallest or least to greatest. And you will always want to place your numbers in least to greatest. So if the mean is not a good descriptor of the data, meaning that there is an outlier, then the median is the next best choice. Alrighty, so today we are really going to talk about our measures of spread, which is another word for variation. Alright, our minimum of our data is going to be the smallest number in our data set. And our maximum, you guessed it, is going to be the largest number in our data set. Okay. Now, Q1, this is quartile 1. This is going to be the median of the lower half of our numbers. It represents the value which 25% of our data is at or below. All right, so once we take our median, we have the left side and the right side. The left side is going to be the lower half of the numbers, or smaller numbers, and that represents 25% of our data. All right, and then Q3 is the median of the upper half of numbers. It represents the value which 75% of the data is at or below. And then we've talked about range before. Let me move this just a little bit. There we go. All right, our range is going to be the difference between the max and your min. There we go. And it measures the dispersion or the spread of the data. That's what I was trying to say yesterday, the spread of data. All right, IQR. IQR, sorry, I'm trying to find a good way to make sure that this is not quite so slanty. That's not any better. All right, sorry guys, hold on. That's much better. Okay. All right. IQR is the interquartile range. And it represents the spread of the data of the middle 50% of data. And outliers, we talked about yesterday, are the data values that vary greatly from the other data. Alright, and so lower boundary and upper boundary are how we determine what are outliers. So in order to see what our lower boundary is, it's going to be our Q1, which remember we said was the median of the lower half of numbers, okay? And we are going to subtract, and then parentheses, 1.5 times our IQR. All right. And then our upper boundary is going to be our Q3, which we said was the median of the upper half, and it's going to be plus 1.5 times our IQR. Alrighty. So I know the first page is a lot of vocab, but we're going to actually see how it all works together. Okay? Alright, so let's flip to our back page, or our next page. And we are going to start to talk about a box and whisker plot, also known as a box plot. Alright, a box and whisker plot is a diagram used to display data set that uses quartiles to form the center box and the minimum and maximum to form the whiskers. Okay, so your lower extreme is another way to say your minimum. Alright, the upper extreme is another way to say your maximum. Your Q1 is this line right here, and between your minimum and your Q1 is 25% of your data. Okay. Your median is also your Q2. And from your quartile 1 to your quartile 2 is going to be 25% of your data. And therefore, from your minimum to quartile 2 is going to be 50% of your data. Quartile 3 is right here, and that's this line. So from your medium to quartile 3 is going to be 25% of your data. From your minimum to quartile 3 is going to be 75, because I'm just adding up the 25s. And then finally, your upper extreme, which is your maximum, is this dot. So from your quartile 3 to your maximum is also going to be 25% of your data. So from your minimum to your maximum is 100% of your data. Alrighty. So now, let's take a look at our first example. Alright. Am I actually going to be able to get all the... I'm getting all the questions. That's exciting. I wasn't sure if I could fit everything on here, but I can. Perfect. Okay. So the box and whisker plot below shows the lengths and inches of the jumps in a frog jumping contest. Alright. So, the very first thing that it asks us is, what's the median of this data? That's the middle. So that's going to be the line inside of your box. So that is right here. Okay. So I'm making line, and this is going to be our median, or our Q2. Alright? And I know my line's not exactly straight, but that's okay. It's about 15. Because it's somewhere in between 14 and 16, so that's going to be 15. Alright, our lower extreme, well, that's our min. That's going to be right here. Okay, and that's a dot, and so we're just going to follow our dot down, and that's going to be at 4. Our lower quartile is going to be Q1. Alright. So Q1 is the first line. And that's going to be roughly at 11. It might actually be at 11 and my line is just slanty. And then our upper extreme is going to be our maximum. And that's going to be 28. And our upper quartile, which is also known as Q3, is the third line in our box. And that's going to be 22. So now, our IQR, our interquartile range of this data, is actually going to be our Q3 minus our Q1, because it's our quartile range, our largest one minus our smallest one. So that is going to be 22 minus 11, which is going to equal 11. All right? And then, what percent of the data is at or above the lower quartile? So you go to your lower quartile, and at or above, so we have 25%, 25%, 25%. Because each piece, and I'll go ahead and say that this is 25%, because each piece from dots to dots is 25%. So at or above is going to be 25 plus 25 plus 25. So that's going to be 75%. And then if we look at what percent of the data is at or below the upper extrema, well, that's our maximum. And it's saying at or below. Well, below it is 100%, because below our maximum is 25 plus 25 plus 25 plus 25. And we just completed our first box and whisker plot. Good job, guys. All right, let's take a look at our next page. All right, so I have very good news for you. We can do almost all of this in our calculator, okay? So we're going to take a look at number 5 while I show you these steps in our calculator. So the very first thing that we are going to do, let me have my calculator right here. Okay, is we're going to press our data button. Our data button is right here. It's right under delete. I'm sorry, I know my nails are awful. So you're going to press data. And you're going to have L1, L2, L3, and a whole bunch of dashes. All right, and the first column, these are columns, should be highlighted. So you're going to enter each piece of data into L1 and press enter after each data piece. Okay, so I'm going to go down here, and our first data piece is 23. So I'm going to type 23 and press enter. All right, and then 27, enter. 24, enter. 18, enter. 20, enter. 24, enter. 56, enter. 21, enter. 23, enter. 52, enter. And I always like to double check to make sure that I got everything. So 52, 23, 21, 56, 24, 20, 18, 24, 27, and 23. Perfect. I have everything. All right, so after we are done with step 2, entering in all of our data, we're going to press the second button, which is the green button, and then we are going to press data. And that's going to come up with this screen. All right. It says stats, and it says 1 var stats and 2 var stats. You're going to press enter on the 1 var stats. All right, and your data is in L1, so you're going to press L1. FRQ, I actually have no idea what that means, so you're going to press 1, and then you're going to press enter on calc. And now it gives you all of this information. All right, so the N means your number of numbers, and you can count them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Excellent. So that's what N means. The X bar, that is your mean. Okay? And hey, look, right here, it asks for your mean. So we can go ahead and put in 28.8. All right? You will not need to worry about SQ. All right? That is later. And you won't need to worry about this one, because that's later statistics class. That's the sum of them, I believe. And that's when you square it, I believe. So don't worry about that. So basically, you want your mean, and then you're going to scroll all the way down to number 7, which starts to give you your minimum. See? All right. So your minimum is 18. So right here, it asks for minimum. Put 18. All right. And then, hey, look, it gives you your Q1, which is 21. I'll move this over here. And then it tells you your median, MED is median, which is 23.5. And then it also tells you your Q3, which is going to be 27. Your max, moving it back over here, is 56. And then if you press down again, it starts you back at the start. Okay? Alrighty. So now you just need to find your IQR, which is Q3. Let me use a different color. Q3 minus Q1. Alright? And so that's going to be 27 minus 21, which is going to give you 6. And then you also need to find your range. Alright, so that's going to be your max and your min. Oh, you know what? I think I skipped a page, but that's okay. I totally skipped a page. That's alright. Okay, so range is going to be your max minus your min. So it's going to be 56 minus 18. And that's going to give you 38. Your mode, you're just going to have to look and see if you have a mode. So let's see, I see 224s. That might be it. Let's see, but I also see 223s. It looks like it's 23 and 24. Yep, cool. Alright, and then your lower bound, so I gave you guys a little bit of space. Your lower bound, which we said was going to be, your Q1 minus, parentheses, 1.5, sorry I forgot the 1, times your IQR. Alright, so it's going to be Q1, which is 21, minus 1.5 times your IQR, which is 6. Alrighty, so 21 minus 1.5 times 6. And so your lower outlier is 12. So that means that anything less than 12 is going to be an outlier. And then your upper bound is going to be your Q3 plus 1.5 times your IQR. So that's going to be 27 plus, and then 1.5 times your IQR, which is 6. And so that gives you an upper bound of 36. So anything larger than 36 is going to be an outlier. Alright, so now here comes the fun part. Now that we've gotten all that information, we're going to use that information to actually create a box plot. So the very first thing that I like to do is draw my minimum. Alright, so we have a minimum at 18. So that's going to be a dot. Alright, and then I like to draw my Q1 because it comes next in the line. So Q1 is 21. So minimums are dots, Q's are lines. So Q1 is 21, so I've got a line. And then my median is at 23.5, which is going to be about right here. So that's going to be another line. And then my Q3 is 27, so that's going to be another line. And then, sorry, I forgot to mention that when you're drawing your dots, you have to pay attention to your outliers. So I didn't have to worry about my minimum because 18 is larger than 12. And remember, it's anything less than 12. But my upper bound outlier is 36, and our maximum is 56. So we have an outlier at 56, so I'm going to draw a star so that we know that that's an outlier. And then we're just going to connect our lines to create our box. We're going to create a line from our dot to our box, just like that. All right. And you've created your first box plot. So now, does the set of Hawk scores have any outliers? Show and explain how you know. Well, we do have an outlier. Yes, we do. Let's see. 56. We also have 52 as an outlier. And 56 are outliers because it is above our upper bound. And then when outliers are present in the data set, which measure of center is the better measure? So remember yesterday when we talked about our outliers and which ones were better measures, we said that mean was not a good measure because the outliers affect it. But median is a really good measure to use when specifically we have outliers. So we're going to say median is the better because outliers do not affect the median. All right, good. Okay, so now we have to go back and we have to do the actual next page. So that was actually supposed to be our last page, but that's okay. All right, so we have a bunch of different box plots that represent sandwich prices at 3 different shops. So we need to determine which of the following statements is false. Okay? All right, so the lower quartile of shop A. So remember, lower quartile is the first line. So that's going to be that. Let me actually, blue is fine. No, it's not. You can't see it on the video. Here we go. There it is. Okay. Is lower than the other shop's lower quartile. All right. So it is absolutely lower than the other shop's quartiles because the other shop's quartiles are larger numbers. You guys see that? Because shop A has the lower quartile of like 4, shop B has the lower quartile of like 4.5, and shop C has a lower quartile of 5.5. So that's not it. So we're going to cross out A. All right, B. Shop C's range is smaller than shop A's range. Okay, so we need to figure out what the ranges are. So C's range is going to be 7 minus 5, which equals 2. Okay, and then shop A's range is going to be 6 minus 3, which is 3. So C's range is smaller than A's, so that's not it. Alright. The median price of a sandwich is the same in shop B and shop C. Well, the median is the line in the middle of your box, and those are exactly the same. They're both 6, so that's not it. So obviously our answer is D because we've proved everything else, but let's make absolutely certain. So the upper quartile for shop B, the upper quartile, is lower than the maximum for shop A. And the maximum for shop A is right here. And so obviously that is false. So D is our answer. Okie doke. So for number 3, we get to draw a box plot. And all of our information is given to us. Okay. So sometimes our information is not always put in order of what we would want to draw it by, and sometimes our number lines aren't numbered. So you kind of have to look at the numbers you're given and see the range, And because we're going 10, 4, 27, 16, I'm going to go by twos. So I'm going to start at 0 and go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 22. And I think that'll give us a pretty decent idea of what we're looking at. Alright, so our median is going to be at 10. And our median is going to be a line. So I'm going to draw a line at 10. And our minimum is going to be 4, and that's going to be a dot. Because remember, our minimums and our maximums are going to be dots. Our maximum is 20. And I just said that was a dot. And then our Q1 is 7. So that's going to be about right here. And our Q3 is 16. And so that is also going to be a line. Alright, and then we are just going to connect our box like so. And then we're going to connect our maximum and connect our minimum. And I always like to label things. So this was our min, this was our max, this is our Q1, our Q2, and our Q3. Q2 is also known as our median. Cool. Alrighty, so number 4. So this is how I knew that we had skipped a little bit. You guys are definitely supposed to learn how to do this without the calculator first. Alright, so let's do it. We're going to do it without the calculator, other than, of course, like adding and subtracting. So the first thing that we need to do is get our numbers in order. So 18 is the smallest one, 21, 24, oh, there's another 24, 27, 28, 29, 31, and 39. Alright, so I can't find the first quartile yet, and I can't find the third quartile yet. I need to find my second quartile, which is also known as my median. So to do that is where we cover up the first, cover up the second, cover up the first, cover up the last, and then slowly move in. So cover up 21, 31, 24, 29, 24, 28, and 27 is our middle. So that is going to be our median. Alright. And then, hold on. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Cool. Alright. And then to find our first quartile, we're going to do the same thing, because now we have our lower bound. So cover up 18, cover up 24. And then we're left with 21 and 24. And so that's going to be our lower bound. So we're going to add 21 and 24, and that's going to give us 22.5 for our lower. And then for our upper, we're going to do the same thing. And we get 29 and 31. And when we add those two numbers and divide by 2, we get 30. Our minimum is 18, because that's our smallest number. Our maximum is 39. Our IQR is going to be Q3 minus Q1, so that's 30 minus 22.5. Which gives us 7.5. And then our lower bound for our outlier is going to be Q1 minus, parentheses, 1.5 times our IQR, which is 22.5 minus 1.5 times 7.5. And when we put that into our calculator, we're going to get 11.25. And then our upper bound is our Q3 plus 1.5 times our IQR, which is going to be 30 plus 1.5 times 7.5. And that's going to give us 41.25. All right. And so now we actually get to draw our own box and whisker plot because none of this is given to us, which is so much fun. So you start by drawing a line to be your number line with arrows, always arrows. And because our minimum is 18, I'm going to start with 18 just to make it a little bit easier on myself. And I'm going to go by 2s. Whoops. Wow. Apparently I'm not that good at going by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Cool. 32, 34, 36. This is what happens when you make a video with little to no sleep. And I'm going to stop at 40 because our maximum was 39. Okie dokie. So now, plot your minimum, which is 18, and your maximum, 39, so that's going to be in between 38 and 40. Oh, sorry, I forgot to check our lower bounds. See, I do it too. So our lower bound was 11.25, and since our minimum was above that, we're good to go to make a dot. And then our maximum was 39, which is lower than 41.25, so we're good to make a dot. All right, and then our next 3 pieces of information are going to be lines. So I have a line at 22.5, which I guess is going to be about right there, and 27, which is about right there, and 30, which is right here. Lines. So then we connect our lines and connect our dots to our lines. Cool. And we've just made it. And just because I like to label, so this is going to be our min, Q1, Q2, Q3, and our max. Awesome. Alrighty, so now what percent of our data lies between 18 and 30? Well, 18 is our minimum and 30 is our Q3. So if you recall, let's go ahead and label out our percentage. So from minimum to Q1 is 25. From Q1 to Q2, 25. From Q2 to Q3, 25. From Q3 to our maximum is 25. So between 18, our minimum, and 30, our Q3, we have 3 25s, which would be 75% of our data. All right, and then what about between 27, which is our Q2, and 30, which is our Q3? Well, that's just going to be 25% of our data. And are there any outliers? Well, based on our lower and upper bound and the fact that I didn't make any stars, we're going to say no. Outliers. Based on upper and lower bounds. Cool. And now I do believe we are officially done with our notes for today. So I'm sorry they were out of order, but I'm glad that you guys got to use the calculator in order to solve box plots. So calculators are definitely the easiest way to do it to make sure that you don't make any mistakes. And you guys will have homework so that you can practice using your calculator. All right, good luck, guys.